Hi there, my name is Kara Lee, and I am making this video to provide some background information, some very basic information about spoken language for teachers and anyone else who's interested. I very specifically called this spoken language, and I want to really reiterate that from the outset, that we know that the core deficit for a lot of our struggling readers is actually can be traced back to spoken language. And that can be a little counterintuitive, perhaps, because what we see, the behavior that we see is, oh, they're looking at print and they can't figure it out, right? Or, oh, they go to write and they can't do that successfully. But again, what we're not seeing is that they have not really, they're not understanding how spoken language really is the basis for written language. And while they are not the exact same thing by any means, in our alphabetic language, we have to have an understanding of the sound structure of our language. So I really want us to be thinking of ourselves as language teachers. I know we often say that we are reading teachers, right? But to say that we're language teachers really encompasses spoken and written language, and it helps us to remember that we cannot neglect this very important first layer here, because of course, in the development of humans as a species, we started speaking to each other long before we started writing things down. And even in the development of any single one of us in the species, we speak before we are able to read or write. So it really is important to have a great foundation in the spoken language. The first thing I want to do is show you a couple of demonstrations, which you can find at this website here. They're on Mark Seidenberg's website. Very much would recommend this book, Language at the Speed of Sight. I believe it came out in 2017. And just an excellent overview of, again, he's got language in the title, right? So just an excellent book. And what I want to do again is just to show you a couple of demonstrations as we start talking about spoken language. This first one is asking, are there spaces between spoken words? And so you'll see this demo here.
Where were you a year ago? Where were you a year ago?
How many words? Where were you a year ago? 6. Here's the sound wave. So again, as it says here, there aren't any spaces. There aren't any, completely void areas of this spectrograph here. And the lines could indicate the approximate boundaries between words, but as you can see, speech is really just this stream of sound. And it is what is important, again, because we have an alphabetic language, is that in order to comprehend it, we must learn how to segment it. First of all, understanding the boundaries between words is something very difficult. If you've ever tried to learn another language and you hear people speaking it, you can't even hardly tell, oh, well, did he just say 3 words or 2 words or 5 words, right? If you're not familiar with the sound structure. All right, and then I want to show you, this is very interesting. It's you can see a recording of just one word, bat, and the whole sound, in speech, the whole bat is more than the sum of its parts. Phonemes are abstract entities in our heads. They are not precise sounds that we produce. we can categorize many sounds as t, but it's very difficult to isolate the part of the waveform, the part of the burst of sound that is the t or the b or the a. And that's what this is showing you here. That's my favorite one right there. There he tried to reverse, right? So we would say that the reverse of bat is tab, and that certainly did not sound anything like tab. So again, I wanted to show these examples because it is very important for us to understand speech and just the language, the spoken language, the properties of spoken language. And honestly, to not rush directly into the written language, even though that's where we see, we can observe the problems, right? We really have to dig deeper and look at the spoken. My headphones back in here. So let's talk about these elements of speech. And we're specifically going to talk about syllables and phonemes. But first, we're actually going to start with phonemes. And so we have this word phoneme, and the base of phoneme is actually P-H-O-N-E, which means sound. So we have the base P-H-O-N-E, meaning sound. And then we have this E-M-E suffix, which means unit of language. So a phoneme is a unit of language at the sound level. So this will be the same E-M-E that we see in grapheme and morpheme. Okay, so unit of language. Phonemes are sounds. They're not just any sound, though. They're not just noise, right? We can hear lots of sounds, lots of noises, but that doesn't make them phonemes. A phoneme is a speech sound. It is a speech sound, okay? And in fact, a phoneme is the smallest unit of speech that helps us to distinguish meanings. So it is the words mat and rat are different by one phoneme, and those two syllables don't mean the same thing, right? So what we can do is talk to kids about the fact that phonemes, we say phonemes, that's what this picture is trying to show, and we hear phonemes. So we can say them and hear them. Okay, they are features of spoken English. What I also want to make sure that we understand, though, is that sometimes we do, in our communication with each other, our written communication with each other, we want to be able to communicate sound, in this case, phoneme. And the way we do that is with these things called slash brackets, or just slashes. I guess they're forward forward slashes? I don't know. Anyway, the thing that is the on the question mark key on your keyboard. And what this means, and we need to be very careful about this. What those mean is sound. So I don't mean in this particular example right here, I don't mean the letter B, I mean B. Okay, very, very, very important. And we're going to go through what all of those are in just a second. The other thing that we want to understand about a phoneme is that there are two types in English. There are vowel phonemes, or really in any language. There are vowel phonemes and consonant phonemes. And we are going to talk about both of those today. So what I want to make sure that we understand is that phonemes are, not only are they sounds, but they are also articulatory gestures. Okay, so we will want to draw attention to the articulatory gestures that are required. What has to be happening with my mouth and my voice box, right? My vocal cords in order to produce that sound. Okay, so they're sounds and articulatory gestures. And the first set we're going to be talking about here are called consonants. So consonant phonemes. We're going to do a little exploration of those. And I have this picture here of this little kid with their hands over their ears. And this is going to help us to distinguish between sounds, phonemes that are voiced or voiceless, or voice and unvoiced. You'll hear both of those. And that is whether or not we are involving the vibration of our vocal cords, essentially. If our vocal cords are vibrating, it's a voiced sound. If they are not, it is unvoiced or voiceless. And one way to we really want to make sure kids are physically really feeling that. Sometimes folks can kind of put their hand down here on their voice box and feel if there's a vibration or not. I find that to be quite difficult. And so I actually prefer, and kids I think do better actually, with when you cover up your ears, I say, put on your earmuffs. You will hear a resonant sound when your vocal cords are engaged. There will be a very clear difference. And it's a lot easier to practice this when we see voiced and unvoiced pairs, which we'll do in just a second, but that's what that picture is for. So I said that phonemes are sounds and articulatory gestures. Here is a chart. You'll see these many, many different places. This is a chart of the consonant sounds of English. And it shows some of those articulatory features or gestures that we were talking about. For example, like, what are your lips doing? What's your tongue doing? Okay. What are your teeth? What's happening with your teeth? What position are they in? Where? The back of the throat, the front of the throat, things like that. Okay. And we also can talk about consonant sounds as being stops, nasals, fricatives, affricates, glides, and liquids. Now, these are not necessarily terms that you need to be using with students, but I want you to have an understanding of them. And what you will want to be able to describe and have your students notice are some of these other kind of across the top here. You know, what is your tongue? Where is your tongue? What is it doing? What are your lips doing? Is the air flowing? Can we let the air flow and keep that sound going, or can we not? So that would be, for example, a stop, like p, p, p. We can't hold that. We can only just go, p, 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 right? Whereas we can hold s, or f. Okay, those are called continuants. So again, we're going to go over each of these individually, but I wanted you to know that these are here. You also have a concept card that looks like this. Sorry, I'm blurred in my background, but it's right there on the screen, but it's a little half-page concept card that is displaying these consonant sounds, okay? And just so you know, you can refer back to that. All right, so let's talk about these sounds, these consonant sounds. You'll see here also that I've used a light bulb, and the light bulb is either off or on. That means that we are either It's either an unvoiced sound or a voiced sound. So we can talk to kids about turning your voice on and off, just like a light bulb. Okay. So the first two voiced and unvoiced pairs that we have here are p, p, and I can talk about and describe what my mouth is doing, what's happening with my lips, teeth, and tongue that you can see here on this picture here, which also is on your phoneme. Let's see here. Let's not blur my background. There we go. You also have a phoneme concept card, by the way. And here's the consonant section, a little picture. What I want you to notice there is that the airflow, that's what the lines mean, is airflow. And you see the child's teeth, tongue, and lips, right? And so it's talking about how we want to pay attention to those things when we are describing consonant sounds. And so what is happening with p is that my lips start together and then they kind of pop open, right? Okay, good. And I can feel right here. If I feel here, I can't feel my vocal cords vibrating. Also can't hear any resonant sound when I put my earmuffs on. But if I do the same exact thing with my mouth, but I turn my vocal cords on, my voice on, then I say b, b. So b, b. Okay. And if I do that same thing with my earmuffs on, b, 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 b. My mouth is doing the same thing. I'm either turning my voice off or on. Okay. So that's what we mean by voiced and unvoiced pairs. It's really the articulatory gestures are the same. I just am turning my voice on or off. And again, that's how we will show p as in pig or b as in bat is with our brackets, right? The slashes, and with the P in the middle or a B in the middle. But we all know that we don't mean the letter P, we mean p and b. Okay. Here are turtle and dog. So when I feel what's happening with my mouth with turtle and dog, at the very beginning, my mouth is doing the same thing. T, d. I'm either turning my voice on or not. And again, I can practice t, d, t, d. It becomes very clear with that loudness, the resonance of that voiced sound when you pair it with the one that's not. Here's some more voiced and unvoiced pairs, like in cat and g as in gate. So those are our key pictures and words for k and g, cat and gate. We have ch like chair and j like jelly or jam or jar, doesn't matter. All three of those names for that picture will work. And so again, hearing and feeling that difference, k, g, k, g, yeah, ch, j, ch, j. Keep going here with some voiced and unvoiced pairs. We have fish, noticing what's happening with my mouth. How am I articulating that sound? Well, I'm pushing air out, but my top teeth are resting on my bottom lip. The air is kind of escaping out the sides. And same with v, but I'm turning my voice on for violin or viola. Okay, and we have sun and zebra. Shell, and pay attention to this one because I'm not talking about, this is a picture of a treasure, but I'm not talking about t. I'm really actually focusing in on that medial sound, one of the medial sounds. J, treasure. Treasure. It's the same sound at the end of the word beige, but it's hard to show a picture of beige I mean, the kids remember that that's beige. All right, so treasure, shell, treasure. Here we have thumb. Oh, look what my mouth is doing. I get to stick my tongue out at the teacher. And feather, feather, and thumb. Okay, here we have, here's a picture of a nose right here, but that is helping me remember that these are the nasal sounds, the nasal consonant sounds. They are voiced. And what's happening is that I am actually pushing the air out through my nose. And so this is kind of fun. If I say the first sound in map and I hold it, but I pinch my nose off, oh, I can't say it if I close off my nose, right? Because the air is coming out my nose. So that is one of our nasal sounds. Also the in the beginning of nest. Think about what your teeth and lips and tongue are doing. Nest. The tip of my tongue, it is pushing up against the back of my top teeth. But when I say the final sound in ring, my tongue, the tip of my tongue is not pushing up against the back of my top teeth. It's actually the back of my tongue is pushing up to the roof of my mouth. Ring, ring, ring. That is a phoneme of English, one that you may or may not be very familiar with, but it definitely exists. It's in lots of places. And we will show that with an NG in the slash brackets. Okay, again, not talking about spelling, but the NG in the slash brackets means and the other way to show that is with this funny looking N with then like the G tail. But that can be hard to find if you don't know exactly where that is and you use it all the time when you're like doing in Microsoft Word or whatever, then don't worry about finding it and using it. Just use NG. But you might see this N with the funky little tail there, and that also, those mean the same thing. Okay, here we have a yo-yo. Okay, we're going to say that y is the first sound in yo-yo, even though it's more like e. Okay, yo-yo, y, y. And wagon, wagon. And then we have this voiceless, okay. Sometimes that sound doesn't even get pronounced. It depends on what kind of sound you're saying next. So we'll talk more about that when we talk about spelling and reading. Okay, then we have these two sounds called liquids. You see I have this warning sign right here. These are voiced sounds, but I put the little warning sign here because these are liquids and they can really wreak havoc on the sounds around them. Okay, and so like leaf, okay, leaf, but then like when I go to say like battle, I'm really kind of making a vowel sound when I between the t and the o. I can't not say a vowel sound there. So we'll talk more about both of these. Same with robot. You know, this just when I have a for example, when I have the word FAR, R, right? The can really, if we actually call that R a vowel sound. And anyway, we certainly will talk more and more about these, but that is why the warning sign is there. Speaking of a warning, by the way, and sounds being articulated in certain ways that affect the way that other sounds sound. Our nasals can also affect the way that the sounds around it sound. So I'm thinking of words like fan or ring or rang or like family. So that especially that before the n, or can really kind of get a little bit distorted. But as we saw in the very first demonstration, phonemes really are not meant, they're a convenient fiction, as Dr. Mark Seidenberg would call them, that we end up, because our ears hear in syllable-sized units, we need to specifically then draw attention to these smaller units of sound within that syllable, because we have an alphabetic writing system. If we did not have, if we had a system, a writing system where all we wrote down were syllables, like we literally made a character like a syllable that represented a syllable, like Japanese kanji, I think it's called, then we wouldn't have to know about phonemes, because we speak in syllables and we write in syllables. But that's not how our language works. Okay, we have a system where letters represent sound to some degree, even if it's not completely transparent or one-to-one. Because of the nature of our writing system is why we are going back and talking about phonemes. Okay, so we can get into long discussions about the pronunciation of different sounds and things like that. And here's the thing, they are going to differ depending on where you are. Just even in the United States, where you are depends on how will determine how you say certain sounds. I'm thinking of like, you know, I'm going to go walk the car, okay, or park the car, or park the car. So, you know, we're not confused. Well, we might be a little bit confused when someone goes, hey, I'm going to go park the car. It's not like we don't know what they're talking about. And regardless of how they say that, regardless of how you pronounce car or ka or car, you're all going to spell it C-A-R. Okay, so the meaning really is revealed in the way that the words are spelled, and that meaning is carried, because if we only spelled by sound or pronunciation, whose pronunciation are we going to go with? Right? So this is a very important topic. This is something that we need to make sure that our kids understand. Kids do need to be able to segment words into their phonemes. We just know that in English, that is a predictor of future reading skills because of the nature of our written language. But you need to understand it's not a perfect system. It can't be, because speech comes in this stream of bursts of sound, and yet written language is very clearly marked, right? Like with letters and spaces between words and things like that. Okay. Oh, also, there are two speech sounds in English that we are going to talk about with our students as being one phoneme, even though we know they're actually more than one. Okay, so I'm thinking about the first sound in the word queen. We actually hear right? Queen. And so because of the writing system in English, whole English words will, in other words, that aren't loan words or borrowed, we are going, when we hear qua, we are going to spell that with a QU. A QU spells qua. So we're going to talk about qua as being one phoneme. Same with x, x. The last couple sounds in 6. It's really six. Okay, that's really what's going on with the phones in that word. However, we will talk about x as being one phoneme. Okay, again, because of our writing system. And as we get more into the writing system, you'll see why we do that. But I want you to know that I know that you know that qu is really a k and a w, and 6 is really a x, a k and a s. And so you will see some differences. If we really are being, if we really are breaking it down to the phonemes, 6 would be 4, k, or s, I, k, s. Okay, but you'll say with my instruction, you're going to hear me say that that's 3, x. Okay. All right, great. So that was all the consonant phonemes of English. And gosh, when I think about putting those sounds together, we know that syllables are bursts of sound that are typically made up with more than one phoneme. Let's see if I can put those sounds together. So I've got a p, g, b, t. You can see that at the top right there, right? So let's see, how would I say that? P-g-b-t, p-g-b-t, p-g-b-t. But just doesn't quite roll off the tongue, as they say. It would really be lovely if I could buy a vowel, Pat and Vanna, because a vowel phoneme will allow me to open my mouth to get ready to say the next consonant sound. Okay, so that is what a vowel sound is. It is a speech sound that we make with our mouth open and our voice on. And we could carry that sound for as long as we have breath. Okay, so some examples will be ah, ah, e, ooh, ah. Those are all vowel sounds. And again, they're super helpful because they allow me to open my mouth to get ready to say the next consonant sound. So you'll see this image down here with the roller coaster. Sometimes we can use that sort of visual with our kids. Map, map, right? The ah is up at the top of the hill. I can open my mouth, or just map, 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 map. Okay, so the vowels, in fact, are quite important as we begin to explore what a syllable is, because a syllable has exactly one vowel sound, a spoken syllable, right? Okay, so let's talk about these vowels. You do have a concept card that has the vowel. This is called the vowel valley. Looks exactly like this that you see on your screen here. And the vowel valley is actually set up. There's a reason why it's set up that way. And it has to do with, again, the articulatory gestures. Now, when I'm saying a vowel sound, I'm really not incorporating anything about my lips, teeth, or tongue. Whereas remember, in our consonant sounds, the air is blocked by my lips, teeth, or tongue. And my voice might be on or off. Well, with vowel sounds, my mouth is open, and I really am making very slight, minute changes, really in what my jaw and sort of lips are sort of doing. And so, for example, if you just watch my mouth, and I will stop sharing for now, I think, and you can kind of, you can kind of see my mouth. So as I say, E, I, A, E, A, I, ah. So I started with E, I ended with ah. And then I can go back up. Ah, o, ooh, or you. Okay. So I started with E all the way on the far extreme and then down to ah, and then back up to ooh, right? So let me share again. Yep. Okay. So that is what we have going on here. And so you can see why kids would have a little bit of difficulty, or even adults, with eh, 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 eh. Like hardly anything is changing with my mouth, my articulatory gestures between those two sounds. Okay. And so what I want you to certainly be aware of here is that the sound, the target sound is not necessarily, again, not necessarily at the beginning. Okay, so for example, this is a picture of feet, and my target sound is E. Okay, and notice that I show that either with a lowercase e with a macron on the top, which again is a special character. You have to find it on your computer and then insert it. You certainly could do that if you want to. You also could just use a capital E. Okay. Both of those to me will show that you mean E. Okay. The next one is itch, itch. You see there a lowercase I or an I with a brev on the top. That diacritical mark is called a brev. Again, you do not have to try to find that on your computer. Just use a lowercase I for I. Here we have a, apron, edge. Now, edge, I'll come back to those in a second. Apple, ice, octopus, saw, up, open, book, and moon, or u like unicorn. So u or depending on where the sounds around it and things like that. Okay. We also have then here over to the left-hand side what are called diphthongs. So this is when I'm actually gliding two vowel sounds into each other. So this picture here is a picture of some toys. So we say oi, oi, oi. You can even see my mouth gliding from one position to another. Oi, oi. I start with my lips tense and then I relax them back. Oi. Okay, and then we have a picture of a little kiddo with a boo-boo that says he's saying ow, 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 ow. Notice this time I'm kind of just doing the opposite I did with oi. I'm starting back here, ow, and bringing my lips forward. Ow. Okay, those are called diphthongs. And then I have got my what we call R controlled sounds over here, which are like bird, R like arm, and or like fork. Okay. And then of course we've got this banana hanging out in the middle. That's not supposed to be b. I'm actually talking about the unstressed vowel sound like in banana. It's at the first syllable and the last syllable of banana have this unstressed vowel sound. We'll talk more about that in a second. And so here you'll see that I've got all the exact same pictures and sounds here that I did on the last slide, except for banana. So I took out banana. And then I'm telling you here that these are the full vowel sounds, strong vowel sounds, stressed vowel sounds. Okay. Any of these sounds that you see, they are articulated on the outer sort of extremes of the mouth. Okay. In terms of where they're sort of located. And we will call those full vowel sounds. We can use this hand, this open hand like this, meaning full, strong, stressed. I particularly want to talk a little bit about those short vowel sounds because we are cueing for them so often, and because again, they're articulated close together and they can be confused by a lot of kids, especially I and eh. We do have hand motions to go along with these. So itch, edge. That man is standing on the edge of the cliff. This is the edge of my finger. Apple. I can point to my atoms. Apple, or I can pretend like I'm biting an apple. Octopus. Octopus. And up. Or I could just point up with this finger. Doesn't matter. Up. Okay. Oh, then we have this lonely little unstressed, weak, reduced vowel sound. And it's that sound. This is what we'll talk to kids about, reducing a vowel sound. It's not fully articulated. It's much just weaker. It's like this, the first sound in about. It's the sound, the vowel sound in like the word of, or to, like to the store. So anyway, we'll talk a lot more about this sound, but this is the reduced sound called the schwa. It's called a schwa, and it can happen to really any time that a full vowel sound becomes weaker because of stress. In this case, not being stressed. Okay. You also have these sound cards. So all of the pictures that are on these cards and in the word detective notebook that your student will be referring to, you'll see the same key picture or that represents a word, right? So violin. So what I'm showing you is that if you want to print these on business cards, you certainly can. That's how they're laid out in the PDF document. They'll to line up with printing them on business cards. And then I just say that because they're easy to separate. They're already perforated and they already fit on there. But you absolutely can also just print them on cardstock and cut them with a paper cutter. Also perfectly acceptable. Actually, the advantage of that is that if you chose, you could put the vowel sounds on one color and the consonant sounds on another color. So especially for you in terms of keeping them organized. I mean, there are like, I don't know, 44 or something of them. So if you want to do that, you certainly can. Those are great, by the way, again, because if we want to talk about a sound without referring to a letter, I want to talk about but I don't want it. I don't say ever the A sound. Never, 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 never. Okay. I can talk about sounds, phonemes, and without referring to the name of a grapheme or letter. Okay. These sound cards help me to do that. All right. So this might seem kind of backwards that we talked about phonemes before we talked about syllables, but there is a method to my madness, which is that you kind of have to talk about phonemes before you talk about syllables, because the term vowel phoneme shows up in the definition of a syllable. So if your students don't know what a vowel phoneme is, if they don't know that they are opening their mouth and voicing the sound, and that's a vowel, then it's hard to talk about a syllable. So a syllable is a word or part of a word with one vowel phoneme. So every time I go to open my mouth to say a new vowel sound, I am saying another syllable. So there are different ways to, kids need to be able to count syllables, right? And segment words into their syllables. So for example, in the word syllable, there are 3 syllable. And notice I'm not clapping. I'm not like seeing how my jaw drops down, syllable. That's really not how I say that word. And so those can be very discrete. That can be too difficult for kids to understand. I've seen some people put their hands on their syllable, but you can really say syllable without doing much jaw movement. So I really like singing the word or saying it within a phrase or a sentence. So like, or if I was calling the word to dinner, right? I'd say syllable. Or spoken, Kara. Okay, I can, every push of breath. I could also hum or whale talk the word. You can talk about finding Dory and finding Nemo and how she talks to the whales. And really the whales don't open their mouths when they talk. When the whale talks, they just go. So, right, if I want to say the word syllable like a whale, and I'll say, syllable, or try to say it with my mouth, my lips pinched. Syllable, right? There's lots of different ways to do this. So I'm giving you lots of options, and it is important though for kids to be able to understand syllable. And I'm hearing them clapping, but that's super unreliable because what do kids end up doing? Syllable, syllable, two. Okay, so if I can whale talk it, hum it, sing it while I'm counting, that's what I want to do. So let's do some practice. What I would like for you to do here is write down. I will say what the word is, and I want you to just write down the number of syllables. So you are writing a number in these boxes. Okay, so this is a zebra. I want you to please write down the number of syllables. You can whale talk it, you can get it in trouble. Zebra, or if you're from Australia, zebra. Either way, it's the same number of syllables. This is a picture of Antarctica. Antarctica. Whale talk it, sing it, call to dinner. Here is a picture of a piece of mail. How many syllables in mail? And this is a picture of coffee. The cup of coffee. Coffee. Or if you want to be fancy about it, it appears to be a cappuccino. Cappuccino. So you could put two different numbers in that box if you want. One for coffee, one for cappuccino. All right, and a little bit of review here. A phoneme is a It is a specific kind of sound. What kind of sound is it? It is a All right. Phonemes are either a word that starts with a V or a word that starts with a C. We can categorize phonemes as being this kind or this kind. One of those words starts with a V, one starts with a C. Phonemes can also be either where I turn my voice on or I turn it off. We call that a word that starts with a V or a word that starts with a U. Vowel phonemes are, which one of those? Is your voice on or off? And what's the word for that? And made with your mouth. Number 5, when articulating a blank sound, the air is blanked by your blank, blank, or blank. So I'm talking about the phonemes here that are not vowels. So when articulating this other kind of sound, the air is something by your Hope that was enough clues for you there. Okay, so let's practice a couple things here. I'll say the word, you're going to write down the number of phonemes, and then you're going to write the actual phonemes, practicing your with your brackets to show sound. So if the picture was the picture of a pick, okay, pick, I would say that that is 3 phonemes, and those phonemes are written like this. We have a P and I and a K. So that's what we're doing here. In this box, you're telling me the number of phonemes in the word net, and then you're actually going to write the phonemes as we would see them if we had to write them down, even though we know sounds are not, phonemes can't be written. There are things we say and hear. But if we do have to write them down, this is how we would do it. Okay, so net. This is pink, pink. Number of phonemes, and what are they? Ooh, mask. Number of phonemes, what are the phonemes? And piece. Number of phonemes, and what are they? And that is it. So you will be turning in the, you'll be turning this, turning in your notes here with the answers to these, to all these last 3 slides, these questions. And that's a great start. So we will talk more about, certainly about phonemes and exploring more about them when we meet in person, but that's a great way to get you started. All right, thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.